welcome back to another knitting stitches tutorial. Today we are going to learn how to do the knit stitch. I have 24 stitches cast on and 2 rows knitted already. If you do not know how to cast on, you can go to video number 1 in this series. I will show you how to cast on. Today we will move forward and learn the knit stitch. Move that tail of ours out of the way. Grab our working yarn with tension. 2 things before we get started I want to say. If you need to know how to do a slip knot or how I hold tension, if you go to the Basics Crocheting 101, Basic Stitches Crocheting 101 series, the very first video, I explain how I do a slip knot and hold my tension, and give a couple other options as how other people hold tension. Okay, so let's get started. I am a Continental knitter, which means I hold my yarn in the same hand that I am holding the work and needle. What I do is I place my middle finger, I wrap my yarn to hold tension, place my middle finger on the yarn and push down. Okay, push down with it on the back side of the needle. Okay, let me get these stitches spread a little bit further apart for you. Here we go. Okay, so I have tension on it, and I bring my middle finger up over it and push down. Then I place the point of my empty needle into the stitch from my side of the stitch, from my body side of the stitch, from where my hands are, from behind the stitch, and under the needle with your work on it. Then I wrap that yarn around the needle, slide the needle down so the tip can pass through the stitch, and bring up that yarn that you wrapped around it. So now you have a stitch on your needle in your right hand that goes through the first stitch on your needle in the left hand. So now we have made a new stitch for the previous stitch, and we're going to take that previous stitch off the needle because we now have a new one over here. We have added one new stitch. Now we're going to do that again. We're going to go in from back here behind the stitch and place it into that stitch. And if you look at it from the end, you can see that it's going into that loop. It's not behind both. See how that is pulling up the thread from both sides here? Both sides of the needle? That's not how you want it. You want it in between. Just like that. So you're only pulling up yarn from the one side. You only have one leg on there. Okay? Readjust my tension now. And now that we're past our first stitch, we do not have to hold that yarn down anymore. It's just that first stitch that gets kind of crazy if you don't control it with your finger. Now, you want to wrap that yarn over the top of the needle and around your right hand needle. Reach over with your index finger and grab hold of it so it don't jump off. And slide the tip of that needle back through that loop and bring up a new stitch. Slide the old stitch off your left needle, and you now have 2 brand new stitches on your right needle. Let's do that again. You're going to take your right needle and place it through the stitch on your left needle. Wrap that yarn around, grab hold of it so it doesn't jump off, and pull the tip of your needle back through the loop, bringing up a new stitch onto your right needle, and slide the old stitch off the left needle. You now have 3 stitches on your right needle. Let's do that again. Place your right needle tip into the stitch from the back side. Wrap that yarn around the needle, grab hold of it so it don't jump off. Pull the tip of your right needle through, bringing up a new stitch onto your right needle, and take the old stitch off your left needle. I'm going to do this in real time, and you can follow along with me, or you can pause the video and work on it yourself. And when you get to the end, start, and we'll turn our work and go the other way. Adjusting your work as needed, pushing the left side up and the right side down. Just a few more stitches and we will be done with this row. Okay, now my left needle is empty and all of the new stitches in work is on my right needle. What I do is remove the empty needle from my left hand, replace it with the one with the work on it, scoot those stitches up, and I have never taken the yarn off the hand. All I did was turn the working needle from this hand over to the other hand. Okay, now I'm going to pick up the empty needle with my right hand and we are going to start all over again. Now remember, this first stitch can be a little temperamental, so we want to make sure and control it with our middle finger and hang on to it. Sometimes you can just place your finger over it, the working yarn, and onto that first stitch, and that kind of controls your first stitch, so that way when you move this front leg to place it into it, it doesn't just shove it right off the end of the needle. It actually, your middle finger is holding your working yarn out of the way by being over the top of it and holding that stitch onto the needle, so that way you don't push it off when you insert your empty needle into that stitch. And then you wrap your yarn around it, and I usually use my right hand to take my index finger and hook it so it doesn't jump off, especially that first stitch. Slide my needle down, pull it through to bring up a new loop, and drop that old one off. And now it's not as much control needed as far as hanging on to your working yarn. If you're learning to knit Continental like I am, I just continually hold on to the next stitch that I'm working, just so that way it makes it easier to put my needle in to the stitch. And all I hang on to is that back leg, the furthest leg of that stitch away from me. Okay, so let's knit this next row. I'm going to zoom out just a hair so you can kind of see it going on a little bit further away. And the same thing as we did on the last row, we're just placing that needle in from the back side of the stitch into the stitch, wrapping that yarn around, bringing it back through the loop, pulling up a new loop, and dropping the old loop off. Remember to move your work every so often. Left side up a little bit to the tips of the needle so that way you can continue working and popping them stitches off. And the right side down as you start filling up that needle and you need a little bit more room, so you just scoot it down. You don't want to keep stretching this center spot, otherwise you'll have big open areas. And continue on to the end of the row. Okay, you have learned the knit stitch. In the next tutorial, I will be showing you how to do the purl stitch. We will be using this same swatch here. We will just be continuing on. What we have here is a couple rows of garter stitch. Okay? I will see you in the next video. Until then, be blessed and be a blessing, and thank you for watching. If you found this video of any help to you and teaching you how to learn the knit stitch, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you. Bye.